Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
Yes, and we are excited to have David Huckfelt on today. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I spent the day. Your latest album, Room Enough, Time Enough, was the soundtrack to my day as I picked up trash on the Mississippi River on Whittetonka.
Okay, that's a worthy activity for the record, I would say.
Perfect pairing.
It's something I do. I have a friend, and we do that periodically. And I thought, I know it's going to be perfect for us today.
Well, if I should have probably marketed it a little heavier to the trash picking up demographic, but I didn't know
We got it.
So got it. Cool.
We got it. But in honor of you and in honor of all of the work that you do to keep people thinking of nature, and
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. If we can clean up the water and there's some music that makes it go by a little easier, then I'm all for it.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about Room Enough, Time Enough. It was your last album, The Stranger Angels, as I recall, something that you wrote up on Isle Royal by yourself.
Yeah.
And now you're working with a lot of duets, a lot more community. How did that happen?
I mean, I think that I wrote most of these songs by myself. And it became clear, maybe it had to do with us. We just had a baby right after did the first sessions for the record. So getting ready to I think the irony of it was getting ready to have a really collective experience of parenting, and also to be my idea was, it's a lot of hassle to go to make a record, and the return, I mean, is iffy at best. If you don't to me, the enterprise of it, I wouldn't really want to do it by myself. And so my idea was to be in Tucson with some close friends, but a lot of acquaintances and a lot of strangers, and just open up, the ball game to this almost this kind of village, or it's like a homeless encampment that just grows and grows. I mean, you're people are. It was an open door welcome, and the irony, of course, being that as soon as we made it and had our son, we were completely shut down immediately and could see no one. So I took that as a sign to get even more people on the record, and I started sending it out to the second batch of musicians recording from home. It just, honestly, the political climate and everything made me feel like it wasn't worth it to do it with me at the center stage, at least in my own mind. I was the one who wanted to share everything or not do it at all. So
I have a two-part question for you.
yeah.
You said you collaborated with some friends and some strangers. In my head, I have you very intentional about what you do, how you speak, everything in your music. So I'm wondering how you got strangers in. Is it if you trusted or whatever, or you're organic, and I know you're good with that? And then the second part of my question is, as you reached out or you came home because you weren't finished, do you think the album went somewhere else because you could maybe tap into people that you couldn't otherwise with all the time? So
Yeah.
we'll listen to your 10 minutes here.
Well, the quick answer to both of those questions is yes. There is I think if you got down to the motivation for a lot of artists, where they record and with who, they're usually retracing a record that they love that was made somewhere, by some specific people. And just so happened that this record that I heard from Tucson was my friend Billy Settlemeyer, and he helped me kind of roll out the red carpet to his community there and plug me in. And once you have once that trust factor is there, when someone makes a record you love and produces it, then you don't have to really sweat the details and micromanage. So he wants to call a trumpet player from Nogales, Mexico, and get him up here in the afternoon. I'll say yes to that, every time. So there were just some. I hadn't met the band. I hadn't met Winston Watson, who played drums with Bob Dylan for 5 years on tour. But that to me is that's a sparky energy. We all have friends who made 8 records here in Minneapolis and then go out to California or up to New York or something, and you benefit from being that open. So I did have a lot of trust in them, and I knew what I wanted as well. And then yeah, I wouldn't say the record went someplace else when we brought it home, but I would say that I got to take my time with it, and I mean, I always have a wish list. I don't. The chances of getting Ryan Young, from Trampled to come in off the road when they're super busy is really they're minimal. But to get him to play fiddle from his house, up in northern Minnesota, and record during pandemic, that's pretty easy to do. And same way with Greg Brown singing duet on the record. I was like, I mean, well, shit, who would I want if I could get anybody? And that's really the question that I kept asking over and over, and then just sending the tracks out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you kind of hit both things on the quarantine just kind of perfectly. You have good karma.
Well, my friend told me once that I have the best things happen to me in the most horrible ways. So it's like uh you know I did get lucky in the sense that we had a newborn that we needed to be with every day anyway, and so we could do that. But yeah, people were home and they wanted to contribute, so I wrote the liner notes out, and it took me like 2 hours. It's just there's like 30 or 40 people who contributed to this record. So
Wow.
But I think that is a silver lining. We had a conference last fall for work, and we got Tom Friedman to speak. He never would have. I think you're so smart to think about if I could have anybody, because it is an odd silver lining, but you took advantage of it. That's amazing.
well, yeah, and I mean, I don't know that there's 5 songs or so on this record, or 6, that aren't mine, and that's on purpose. Like, I could have spent some more time. I have other songs, but the feeling I had was, especially when it came to collaborating with indigenous artists, that's not my spotlight. I'm not native. I don't pretend to be. I want to use the stage and the platform, however small mine is, to just like go ahead and step aside and show people who I love and what songwriters I love. And so for that, I think it's just um, I'm sickened by this current state of music promotion. I'm sickened by the me first, the constant barrage of I'm going to put myself in your face 1,000 times a day because I have to. I feel sad for artists having to live with that pressure. So to my solution was to be like, here we are. Here's everybody I love. Take it or leave it, but we're all in this together. So
Funny, I always kind of look back to see what have I written about somebody before I'm going to talk to him tonight. And the last thing was when you were at the Grand Ole Opry, and I must have done a review. I must have done well, I did a review. Obviously, I saw it. But one of the things that I noted at that show was that you had said the power is the people in the community.
yeah.
And this album exemplifies that.
I really appreciate that. I really do. And I mean, um, it's not the most, I saw a lot of people making smaller records because they have to, cheaper records. solo records that are really solo. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I think that's can be so powerful. And I would like to do that maybe next, is just like strip it all the way down. But this year, if it's taught us anything, it's that purpose and meaning in our life is in relation to one another. And you take a few of those big important pieces or people off the table, and we start to suffer pretty quick. So I've just when you think about the water protectors up in northern Minnesota, and the thing that gets missed about that sometimes is they're not just fighting for their water, they're fighting for your water and for my water. And if it matters if there's 20 people or 40 or 6, like they're being a part of something bigger than yourself is just something that's really healthy for us mentally, I think. And we've missed it. I've missed it this year.
I was just up in Park Rapids a couple weeks ago, with the water protectors. And it is the work that they're doing. It is amazing. And I think when you go up there and you see really how intimidating it is to be up there with the Enbridge crowd. It's I was explaining it to one of my daughters. I said it's like a scene out of Aaron Brockovich. As you drive through there. But yeah, I mean, it is that area should be kept. And I know you're an advocate, especially the work that you've done is with the Isle Rail and so much of the information and fundraising that you did with their first album. But that if we don't take care of it, not only are we going to lose it, that is a slippery slope of losing the water of life.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think the thing is that if we were living in the best of times, and there has been seasons where, I never want to overburden the music too much. Music exists in and of its own accord for its own purpose. It doesn't have to be attached to anything, cause-wise. Political music is difficult, and a lot of times it's not helpful, but during crisis, I feel like I just also wanted to make functional music, like something that could be, plugged into these kind of more vital concerns that felt meaningful to me. And that song, Keith's song, Book of Life from the record, we dedicated that to water protectors because I feel like, you see these badass, especially these women up there who are out there every day, and they are marching and they're sitting and they're speaking so eloquently, and you almost forget because they're so strong that takes a lot of resilience and strength. It takes a lot of mental and emotional, like, immune system to keep doing that. So I guess it's a lot of the record is me saying thank you to the people who I want to thank for trying to make the world a better place for my new baby, like.
When I was listening to the song Book of Life, it's funny. I had purchased the cards, if you've heard of it, Actual Curiosity, where it's supposed to spark empathy. It's like, oh, well, the song is like, it's a question where you can ask, a diverse group of people and get them to think outside themselves and create a healthier way of living. And that song, I was just like, it's the deck of cards.
Sure,
it is so beautiful. You have to look into it now, but
I will.
It's crazy cool, and that makes me think of another thing. When I was thinking of you, what comes to my mind is respect of life, differences, earth, animals, whatever. And I was at a show when you were talking about listening to your grandparents speak, and just the respect of elders that you have, that I've witnessed and hearing. Have you always been that type of person that surrounds yourself with, with the pandemic too, everyone's like, oh, people are old, who cares? And I was just like, ooh, you know, you
Yeah,
are a person that gets like, no, 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 this isn't a throwaway part of life here.
I think since the time I was a little kid, I think I wanted to be an old guy, you know, like I dressed like, and I got, you know, my grandfather's coats and hats and, you know, once again, I think we are really shaped by crises, you know, and, uh, you know, when my parents split up, it got to be, you know, I wanted a way out, so I went and moved in with my grandparents, and I spent my senior year of high school on the farm in Iowa, living with my grandparents who were married 64 years at that point. So, um, I would say that's always been a part of like what I just feel drawn to that. You know, I think maybe because I walk around life like my head's on fire, and when I look at older people or people who have a maturity spiritually, then I want to figure out how they did that, you know? Um, and to be truthful, you know, Keith has become a very close friend. And you know, he told me that he wrote that song for his son the day that his son was leaving for college. You know, where are you going? Why are you leaving? You know, why do we suffer? And so there's a real actual aspect of, I was very close to my grandparents, but then I also started, you know, becoming a dad. I started watching who do I know who's really good dads, you know, and in my native friends, my in the indigenous community have a such an inclusive and all for one. We go everywhere together, and everybody's always invited. There's always room for more, and don't even ask me if I'm going to bring my kids because of course I am, and their cousins too, and we're all going to show up in, you know, a bus. And to me that just makes a ton of sense, and I was like, that's I just gravitate to that kind of ethic, you know. I mean, I guess I am kind of, I mean, I like being alone too, but sometimes, you know, more the merrier is makes sense in music, I think, to me.
Do, do you see yourself becoming more like the man looking at your own son?
Do I see myself becoming more,
More, you know, becoming the older person you want to be, you know, like kind of.
you know, I mean, that's a good question. It's you know, this hasn't been an especially easy year for that.
No.
And so, you know, quite honestly, that's like I was when you start doing inventory on the number of emergencies that were, you know, going on and personally in our lives as a family, like they stacked up. They were like, it was like three or four too many, you know, between, you know, first time parents, pandemic, you know, Minneapolis riots, unemployment, no music, no income. So to answer your question, it's like at least I feel I'm very vulnerable, you know, with my son. Like I feel like we've been together nonstop. I haven't been away for a night in a year, you know, not touring, anything. So um it's like I want if I can't be the person that I want to be because of the world, then I just want to be engaged with the world in a way to try to show them what you can do about it, you know, and at least maybe reflect some of that resilience because um, this is not normal time, you know, not at all.
No, and I think because we're Facebook friends, your son just turned 1 in the last couple of weeks, didn't?
Yeah,
Or
just like not even 2 weeks ago.
yeah. So you really have had a strange experience that I can't relate to with COVID. It's and I have said my sister was just in town, and between the two of us, we have 7 kids, and we have absolutely agreed. Thank God we did not have small children
Sure.
because
Yeah.
that is
Well,
when you need the community. I mean, that is just when sometimes you need to say, I'm going for a walk. See you, Grandpa.
yeah. I mean, it's very true. Very. I can't even, you know, I can't underestimate that, like, or overstate it. But it's just significantly less fun. You know, I see music the same way, where it's like, you know, difference between I like playing solo on occasion, but I mean, I don't mind it at all. You know, but when Jeremy is there, Yova Soccer, or when JT is there, And I mean, honestly, 8 or 9 months of quarantine with the little baby was like, that was great. But month 10, 11, and 12 have been like, where the fuck is everybody? You know, like I want to, you should hold this kid, you know, like, we're not, yeah, I think he's getting bored with us, maybe, you know, he's already onto our tricks. Oh, you know, our two tricks, he knows them. And it's like,
The thumb work trick isn't working anymore.
no. He's like, no, this can't be all there is. Not just you two.
Funny to think of it from a kid's perspective, and I have looked at kids through this, and I think how weird for them to go through those first couple of years where everybody's got a mask, nobody's
Yeah.
touching, nobody. It will be really interesting to see the impact of that down the line.
It will. It will. You compensate in other ways, and you can't really worry about it because you can't change it. But I mean, you know, the number one. I don't want to say cliche, but uh, you know, people are constantly like, "Oh, your kid, you know, he's so musical. Is it, you know, what's he going to be?" Or, you know, and I'm like, yeah, hopefully, you know, a forest ranger or you know, a marine biologist. I don't know anything. Does not have to play music, but the truth of the matter is, for the, you know, 7 or 8 months, it was all day, every day. We were playing songs. You know, I played him tons of songs on the guitar, and we played so much music in the house, so many records that I have to admit, you know, he is extremely musical. Like now that he's crawling and almost walking, he just goes and points up at the guitar on the wall, and he's like, let's go. You know, what are you waiting for? Like, get that down. And then he'll pick it up by the strings and hand it to me. So, you know, there is something about that. I guess when music and music business is total shambles, and it, you know, it really is shambles. Everybody I know, the exception of the lucky, are hurting. But then there's a kid who, as soon as, you know, as soon as he hears, like, you know, James Brown, he just starts, you know, he's been dancing since like the beginning. So I think that's, in a way, it's helpful, but it's got nothing to do with music as profession. It has to do with like music as lifeline, you know.
It's a really interesting distinction. Music as profession versus music as lifeline.
Yeah. That's not a smart profession. I don't know if any of your other guests have told you, but
Yeah, but you're so good at it. I mean, what else would you do if you weren't a musician?
you know, I don't know. I think I mean, that is a question that's probably healthy for anybody who um, does music, you know, to think about. I think, and um, sometimes, you know, I've heard people who are obviously and very much lifers, who are committed so much, say things like, well, you know, I just was going to I figured I'd do something else, or, you know, I'd be a carpenter, or like, um, and the price that it asks, you know, the commitment that it asks of you is very exacting. And so, you know, for me, I'm not sure. It's interesting when you drive all of your passions into one pursuit. Um, you know, I just think the stability of it on a good day in a good year was is tough, and so this is not a good year. And I think it's making a lot of people wonder, you know, how does this sustain, and what's the value of this, um, if it can be erased so quickly, you know?
Well, uh, we love your music, and we do talk to a lot of musicians. But what would be, and I always say an investment in musicians in the last year is an investment in having music in our future. And I couldn't hold a tone, I couldn't hold a note, I couldn't hope to save my life. But if music disappeared, that, you know, I would lose a chunk of what I really love. How can people best support you now and other musicians? But
Yeah.
because we're talking to you, I'm gonna.
Well, I mean, the you know, the best thing I think is, especially in times like this, is to, you know, to buy music directly from the artist, or, you know, I mean, Bandcamp has obviously been a saving grace for a lot of people because it's direct, and most your average listener doesn't quite understand why their Spotify plays don't translate into money in your
Yeah.
bank account, you know. Um, but I think I think that's the best thing people can do. When live music is back, I think it will be very, very popular, very well attended, very. But I just think of I think of the music community as an ecosystem, and just like climate change, we start losing species,
Yeah.
like weird ones, the cool weird ones who are on the fringe and they do stuff that is not, you know what I mean? And every time we do, like our we lose that diversity, our lives becomes a little smaller. I just think of it as like, wow, there should be really, like put Bernie Sanders in charge of the revamping the music industry, because there should be so much more to go around for people doing weird things on their own,
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way to look at it because we'll lose those little creeks and they'll be gone. We'll always be able to find a swimming pool. There'll always be those people who maybe do well with the profession of music, but it's not sustaining. Some of that is not sustaining my life,
Right.
my
Yeah.
livelihood. My the music I have for my life.
I've seen you guys at so many shows. I know how much live music both of you see. It's like, I mean, I guess if you're
Oh,
going
those
to,
two again.
no, it's great. If you wanted to, maybe the best way to support musicians is if you could just clone yourselves in every city from here to Bozeman, and
It
yeah,
is well, and it's funny because that is why I like to ask people, because one of the things is that my job hasn't necessarily changed, but I'm not going to shows every night. So suddenly I'm like, how can I support? How can I flood some of the money? Because damn it, I would like to go to some shows. Now,
yeah.
to be fair, Heather and I were just at First Avenue last year, so we saw you play last summer at
Ice
Ice
House.
House.
Oh, at the Ice House, yeah, yeah. We're gonna do those again this summer too.
Good.
Good.
Starting up here pretty soon. Yeah, yeah. That's, I
Good.
mean, that's the, there's like a, it's tough. I think people have been really supportive. I mean, virtual shows, I'm sorry, they're not that fun, but we've had, people tune in and donating, and there has been a generosity there. And as a musician, I guess, most of the people I know like to work, like if you didn't like to tour, you shouldn't even be doing it, because it takes a toll and it's not easy, so I think it's being on charity and unemployment, and it's like the welfare line of music has been like, there's only so many times you want to ask your friends to tune into your live stream or to donate, really the people I know, they miss working, like being able to create songs and then plug them in functionally to people's lives in rooms, and that's been tough, I think, for people.
Well, hopefully the nice weather will open some door. I mean, will
Yeah.
literally open some doors,
Hmm.
because I think, and it was one thing to watch a live stream of a show in November.
Yeah.
It's tougher to do that when it's nice out. I mean, in Minnesota, we feel like we got to be outside, man.
It's tougher to do if you've done it like 3 times. Then you're like, oh, I'm gonna go do, I'm gonna do this again. I'm gonna go, yeah, I don't know. I did a lot of benefits. I did benefits for Second Harvest Heartland, and we did a benefit for voter turnout with Louise Erdrich, and those made sense to me. For Seed Savers Exchange, like but I don't know. If I think if I had to do more live streams, I would just be like, I'd
Yeah.
rather just, talk to you guys, and have it be, this feels more personal anyway,
Yeah,
no one
it
wants to
is.
play and stare at themselves on a screen. I guarantee you, nobody
No,
wants.
I can't imagine. I did notice that you were in the Star Tribune in the last week, and somebody's best last memory or best memory before COVID, Gina Smith.
Yeah, yeah, I love Gina. As I
Yeah,
mean, another person who, yeah, just is outpouring of support for live music, and that was a fun night. And we had no idea that that would be one of the last ones. You know, that's beautiful. Ryder Homestead, like, you know, about 100 people packed in an old farmhouse. Uh, what more do you want? You know, like
yeah.
that's what it's all about, really. I mean,
Well, I think we'll see more of that. You know, this it won't be 100 people packed in anywhere.
yeah.
It'll be 100 people spread out.
Yeah, in backyards and you know, that's the thing. I mean, you know, 12 years of touring with the Pines, we never I mean, on occasion we played to a massive crowd like at, you know, Edmonton or Calgary Folk Festival or Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival in San Francisco. There'd be these moments where we'd be like, "Oh, okay, so this is what it's like." Usually we didn't have the biggest tour itinerary, but we had the weirdest. And I would put that up against almost anybody. Like this night, it's going to be a barn. Tomorrow, it's a nature center. Tomorrow, it's someone's backyard. Then it's the Fillmore, you know, and then it's just like we had, you know, somebody with a church in the middle of nowhere really wants us to come to South Dakota, you know. So I think that stuff is pretty beautiful, and I'd hate to see it go away. And I think it will be the first kind of things that come back as the smaller, unconventional type shows.
Yeah. Some of my favorite shows have been I traveled overnight from Dublin to Girvan, Scotland to see a friend of mine play in a church.
Mm,
You know, and we saw it and then we kind of went home. No, we saw it and then we stayed the night and drank a few whiskeys with him and then went home. But it, you know, and I like I have a penchant for noise, harsh ambient noise too. So I've seen a lot of basement shows. I think those will be going to be awesome. You know, you're
yeah,
just going to have to find a greater space for those, and that's it's going to be.
yeah.
I'm hopeful.
Soon, yeah. Good.
A day like
I'm glad
today gives
somebody
me a
is.
lot of hope. A lot of hope. It's funny we've been talking a little bit about that book of life, the book of life, which I do love that. So I just want to. It. One of the questions, one of the in the series of the song is, what are you proud of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you had to say, what are you proud of? What are you proud of in general? What are you proud of in the last year? And I'm going to take your son off the table.
Oh, okay. I don't. Yeah, I'm not even proud of him. What's he doing? Barely walking right now. Come on, dude. That's a good. That I'm proud. I guess that. I mean, I really am proud of the record. It's. I lost steam at the end of the process because it was a long year of kind of dragging it around, but to set that kind of intention and to make it happen, and um I'm proud of everyone's contributions, you know, like that's a thing. I mean, you know, some of my favorite singers in the country are on the record. Quiltman is one of my favorite singers. He lives out in Oregon. Just nobody has a voice like him. Jackie Bird is nobody knows who Jackie Bird is, you know, in our community, in the
Right.
indigenous community. She's, you know, she's a hero at powwows, you know, across the country, and performs, you know, ceremonies. And um but I think I feel proud when I, you know, when a song comes on. There's been some radio play even when I was in Tucson, and I'm just like, I'm proud to know these people, you know. And yeah, I guess I'm proud that we weathered, you know, the year safely. I mean, it's hard to take Billy off the table, but it was like keeping safe and having our parents be safe, and I guess, yeah, not falling apart, you know. I mean, you know, I like this is, you know what I mean? Like, or if we did, it didn't go all the way, you know. So and yeah, to not be calloused. I mean, I think that I read somewhere Well, I know exactly where. I read in a book, a City Lights publication called Gypsy Cante, um, just all these written out lyrics from gypsy songs.
Mm,
But there's a line in there, I sing to prevent the fusing of bitterness to sorrow. Um, so, the idea being that, like, if I can keep singing, then my sadnesses won't crystallize into bitterness and resentment. And sometimes singing might be the only thing that'll do it, but you wake up one day and you realize you're pretty dark and you got some resentment and some bitterness. And I think that the music can play a role in making sure those little magnets don't ever quite touch. It keeps them separate. Your sorrows can be your sorrows, and they don't have to cement you into a. That's the hope. That's my hopeful hope. you know.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, I needed to hear that. That was really helpful. I am going back, or I wanted to ask, since you are such a strong voice and you do write about such meaningful things, how have you been a person like always that is you can speak your mind and not worry, or even at shows, I remember at the Ice House, you're like, hey, if you think this way, probably not, you're probably not my person, and have a nice night. And I just thought, how refreshing to be confident enough to say it and not be in a battle with somebody, just like, nothing to see here, go about your day or whatever. And I just think more people should embody a little bit of David Huckfelt in their selves.
Oh, that's very generous of you. I mean, it's tough, I guess. Um, I mean, the first thing I'd say is I learned a great deal by um, watching, hearing, and then getting to know John Trudell, the American Indian movement activist. I mean, this is a musician and activist. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I mean, aside from being an incredible poet and a spoken word artist, he throughout his life he gave just the most kind of riveting and slightly terrifying talks. He could call them rants, but he was an amazing public speaker, and he had this way of dancing around the you know ownership of those perspectives. He would say things like, he would, like, kind of, like, punch you in the gut and then give you a little cookie, and be like, what, don't listen to me, I might be crazy, what do I know, I'm just saying that terrorism arrived on this continent with Christopher Columbus, but don't listen to me, maybe I'm crazy, and I feel like um I don't know, it's a trial and error. Like, I feel like I make so many mistakes. I've made mistakes, speaking out or getting on a high horse, like, I went to theology school, so the dangers of being preachy I'm very intimately acquainted with, and you get sick of yourself, and no one, you don't have like, I would never think that I have an authoritative voice on anything. So there's a humility, I guess, but then at some point it's like you're leaning against the window and you just want to find out how hard you can lean on it, and then sometimes it breaks and sometimes it doesn't. But not saying something, like in the era of Trump, not saying something to me is like, doesn't make any sense. I remember they were looking for people to play the inauguration, and the only person they could find was Toby Keith, and it was like, well, I'd gladly play the impeachment when that comes. I didn't know I would have two chances at it, but I just feel like there's a respectful way. Keith says it. He says we have to lead people gently to brutal truths, and if you can do that, and admit when you do it, when you're wrong, you're not always right, but it's worth the risk, I guess, is my a short way of saying all that. You know, like I don't think making somebody mad who is a really outspoken supporter of, you know, inherent racism, or I mean that to me is like, yeah, go ahead. And you know, there are some lines we can draw here, you know.
I just recently had a conversation with people about that. I said, you know, it's some of the work I do at the Women's March, and we won't go into, you know, letting people share a passion with you. And if they don't share that passion, the details don't matter.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, there's, it's, I mean, civility, you know, sometimes gets away. I mean, I got, you know, dragged into some, you know, ranting and arguments on social media, but I also feel like, I mean, my honest feeling, if you want to know, is that, I mean, I spent a couple years in theology school, under the heavy thumb of a very conservative brand of Christianity, and I made it out. And so I tend to take it really personally when like when that's, you know, is used as a sword or as a tool of some kind of oppression. I just, you know, especially when it comes to Native peoples, I just, you know, assuming the good intent of Christianity is not a foregone conclusion, you know. So, and I feel, you know, we're always, we speak up about the things that have really affected us. I guess it's like writing what you know. So that's something to me where, you know, I'll always, and I'll gladly listen to you disagree with me. You know, I like the chase a little bit of, you know, I'd rather have someone stand up and disagree than just pretend to nod their head. So
Mhm, mhm.
I don't know. Sometimes they should shut up, is what I've also learned. There's a great time to shut up too, you know? Like,
I was going to say, I think you're a good listener, so I wouldn't say shut up. It's people that just like to hear themselves speak all the time, but I think you are, yeah, good listener. I want to know the songs Hidden Made Known.
yeah.
Talk to me about that one.
I yeah, that song's been around for a little bit and been reworked and reworked. I might be the only person left. I don't think I'm quite, but like I love the long form, um I call it like a long form kind of folk song where, you know, it's something that so many people do it really great, but you know, when Dylan talks about it, he says, you know, there's certain songs of his where every line could have been another song. And when he says that, he's obviously right because he's got he can prove it. And I'm not saying that that's true for that song, but in my mind, I'm just like, um, there's a lot packed in there, and occasionally like, I couldn't do a whole record of those kind of songs, and maybe I do too many as it is. But for me, the writers who write like that, I'll go on that journey with them all the time. So that's, you know, that's um, somewhere between a concept, you know, like the innermost becomes the outermost, you know, the hidden is made known, and then the experience of, you know, all those little, like little vignettes to me. Um, you know, it goes from Sault Ste. Marie to Wounded Knee. You're on the border with San Javier, the ghost beads. Like, to me, that's just, you know, tenderness and intention. And I'm just in moments when I recollect when I felt that way. You know, like that's something really tender that you didn't see quite coming, but it'll have its moment. So it's kind of a, it's like a song of good faith. You know, like have some faith. Eventually, this and sometimes the hidden stuff is not the good stuff. Sometimes it's like, you know, the truth comes out and it hurts. It can go both ways. It's not always safe, but that song is kind of lifts up when it's good news, you know, that's right deep in there. So Um, yeah, very very personal song. Um,
What, that's one thing I wanted to know, because you are so, or I'm thinking, I don't know, deep and thoughtful and intentional. I'm like, kind of like Dylan, like, does, I feel like it just like flows out of you because this is just who you are. You show people who you are or what is important. Or like, I'm like, what the hell is it going to sound like if David dives deep? You know?
uh, I
Do you need it to be quiet to get this? Or, I mean, I feel like it's right here, right on you know?
I mean, I really appreciate that. I don't. I um. I mean, I was a writer a long time before I picked up the guitar. So that's just like, and we all just we broadcast our what we consider our strengths, and we try to diminish our, our shortcomings. Like I mean, it's interesting because I've talked to friends of mine often about this, and like Eric Koskinen. I'm like, people don't even know how great of a writer they know, but not everybody enough what a great writer you are, because you can say it so succinctly and so simply with four chords, and um so I guess I'm saying, like, sometimes I weary make myself weary with this, like, need to overload, kind of a poet's intention into these songs, because that's not even always my favorite kind of music. Like, I think it can be burdensome, but when people um you know some people think Leonard Cohen was kind of interesting. Like, I think, I know every record. I know every, like, that to me, out on a Tuesday afternoon in the sunshine, I have no trouble listening to an entire Cohen record, or, reading the poems. So I guess it's just kind of what your palate is. And I guess, once again, by the time it's time to write a song, I don't get to write enough of them. So or even in the Pines, we made like 4 records in 13 years. So that kind of scarcity makes it so, well, I'm going to put every goddamn I'm going to, like, load this thing up with as much, I guess, meaning. I mean, it's meaning. The meaning is going to be there. If you want to listen to it once and that's it, that's fine. If you want to go deeper, I'm hoping there's all kinds of things in there. I mean, it's going back to a poem or something and finding new things around it. So a lot of people don't have patience for that, but I'll do it.
I was going to say my notes to myself was Leonard Cohen for you and Eddie Vedder's Into the Wild album. And
Uh-huh.
when you just said that, I was like, okay. I was like, I don't know. Am I making this up? But okay. No,
No,
it's
I
seeped
love.
into you.
Yeah, no, you hit it really well there. That soundtrack is. I mean, I'm not a huge Pearl Jam fan. I like certain records and songs, but that was a whole different. Um, it very much resonated with me, and there was a soundtrack too to that film Dead Man Walking with Sean Penn and I mean, Steve Earle, Johnny Cash, Tom Waits. So they came out around the same time. But yeah, you got it right there. I would say.
Yay!
Mhm.
do do you feel now, because we've spoke of your son, that your songwriting, you'll twist it into seeing it through something, a different lens, or I don't know.
Mm.
I feel like you're pretty good at, but if you're tapping into something,
Well, I don't know. I think, I mean, I could make up an answer to that, or or I could tell you that as we sit here now, like, I was just reading an article in the uh, New York Times about late stage pandemic, and sort of the toll that it's taken on a lot of people with their work and their daily routines and stuff. And I honestly, like right now, I haven't written anything in quite a long time. And there's a real feeling of like kind of having been dangled over the fire, the uncertainty with I mean, I also had a job that I kept part-time at the co-op. So I lost all my jobs, during this year. No touring, no grocery store. And I guess part of what I want to do going forward is just be honest with people in the terms of how vulnerable it is. I don't know when I'll write another song. Like to me, I'm kind of the true feeling is like it's like the opposite of Instagram, like how everything looks great. It's like holy crap. Like I think becoming a new dad would have been really such a huge shift just by itself. But I think, the uncertainty of this last year means to me, like, I mean, I'm just really looking at music and saying, wow, you can do meaningful things or you can do what you think will work, popularly or financially. But it's all pretty knotted up. And even the way I'm talking about I love to say, you know what, I've had this year with my son, and I know when I start getting into some new songs, it's not happening yet. It's been like survival. And even my friend, I have a friend in Tucson named Hal Gelb, a great songwriter, and he's like, well, he's a dad too. He's like, what you need to do is you need to buy a baritone guitar and a little amp, and I swear you're gonna start feeling better. And I was like, how? I'm not gonna buy a guitar. I don't even know if I will. Like the way I feel right now, I don't know if I'll write another song for a while, which is sad kind of, but that's the truth of this year. And I guess, either you had something to fall back on, some of my friends that did other jobs, but we wanted to be so careful that so right now it's like, I hope I have a chance to turn over kind of a leaf and put some of these experiences on paper into songs, because they've been very tender this year. But it's like harrowing. It's like you don't, yeah, right after the car crash, you don't really want to talk about the car crash. You might, or right after you get back from the war, you might need a little time, so I'm sorry that's a long answer, but it's true. Like, I'm not sure, you know, I'm kind of mad at music or COVID or both,
I think that's very honest, and it's how a lot of us feel for different reasons. And I know with me, my frustration is tell me, tell me when it's gonna be over. Now I've got my first shot scheduled for Thursday, and that's a little bit of when it's over. But it for
yeah.
me, it's over when I have two kids who go to school in Canada, and I haven't seen them
Okay.
for so that everyone's got
Yeah.
their thing, which is a totally different thing than your thing, but I'm like,
Right.
just tell
Yeah.
me when I can see that. Tell me when I think we're not, the car's crashing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's it, is that the car's still crashing.
Well, it is, and I think it's there's I don't want to say a misnomer because it's true that a lot of times great music and great songs come out of very tough experiences, but there's also kind of this hierarchy of human needs where it's like so many of my friends who are great songwriters haven't written anything much, or have been trying and not, like you kind of have to, um, there has to be a baseline, I think, of stability, um,
Well,
to really access those kind of like that. Otherwise you come to the guitar or to the notebook with way too much expectation and pressure. You want to come with like a really
mm,
light touch. But if you're scared to death, you bring that. And sometimes those songs, sometimes you need to write them, but sometimes those aren't your favorite songs to put in the world because they're like desperate. Does
it's
that
hard
make
to hear.
sense?
That's hard to hear, but I thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I think we do live in an Instagram world where people are like, oh, they're having a great time. Their kids are all getting A's. They're, we're doing this, and it's not how we all feel. It's
No, it's not. And yeah, it just there could be room. There could be some more room for honesty. I feel like. Oh, there's a big. Sorry, there's a giant stink bug in my attic now. All of a sudden. Um, yeah, and I don't know. It's like I will say this too, that um, the one thing that we miss. I mean, you guys miss going to shows. If you don't talk to your music friends very much, like or see them, and like you start to feel pretty alone, like you're going through some things. I mean, that's been a tough aspect because the truth is, in Minneapolis, probably more than a lot of places I've lived, this community supports each other. You know, someone's in need, or I mean, you go to the ice house for one night, or you go to the turf club, and you walk away feeling understood, and or maybe feeling empathetic to someone. So musicians kind of need that. That's like it's part of the job to feel that support, and that's kind of been hard to come by too. I haven't seen JT in like 5 months. I should go more than 3 weeks without seeing JT Bates. That's to be law.
yeah,
So, and none of these people have met my kid, which is crazy.
that's
you know
hard.
like it's like we had the next Dalai Lama, and we're protecting him and keeping him in hiding and secrecy.
Best kept secret. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is hard because especially if you're community minded, you want to share your kid and you want to share share the community with the kid.
Yeah.
It's a two-way.
Yeah. And I think there will be I mean, there will be, God willing, there'll be some really great music and songs that comes out of this. I think a lot of it's going to have to do with, I don't think anyone wants to go deeper yet. They just want to go away. So
Yeah.
um yeah, maybe singer-songwriter music is going to be on the back burner for a while, and dance bands will be, like I'll be glad when I can see a full band show.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. Because we have been blessed and we have seen a number, we've been lucky in the bands that we've been to see, but yeah, to see a full stage. For me, if I just dance right up by the stage where I like to dance, that's when I feel like that's normal for me. There'll be a new normal, but we'll get to other things,
Yeah. 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 I don't know. I think yeah, we'll see. I just, the Shannon, my partner asked, if they could do one thing now, what would it be? If you could get, do one thing outside of quarantine, it's like we really just want to have a party. I like to see like everyone in my inner circle at one place, find out if everybody's doing okay, what their war stories have been like, and pass our kid around. Like that's I miss that quite a bit. And songs and stuff, like I mean, I worked really hard on the record, but this is a tough year for records, so to speak. Like there's some that squeaked through. When you have a society that's worried about whether a maniacal, tyrannical president is going to win re-election, like people are wired up. So now we all just got to go forward into the unknown.
It was funny. While I was out with my friend picking up the trash, walking way to Tonka, and I looked at her. God love her. She manages a number of homeless shelters, so she's living. But I looked at her. I said, "Guess who's not president?"
Yeah.
We both were like, "Oh, it's sun shining," and guess who's not president? But everything is so hard. But remember when when he lost that day, and everybody was out. Everybody was with their flags and everybody was cheering. But the
Yeah.
world is so hard, we couldn't even sustain that, but thank God for it, because imagine where we'd be.
No, it's absolutely true. And I think the first song on the record, Better to See the Face, that comes from this little Zen Buddhist, it's koan, which is kind of like a sort of a verbal riddle of sorts, but it's the idea of intimacy. It's better to see the face than to hear the name. And the thing for me, I guess, is um we're already heading so deep into this isolation anyway because of our digital worlds, so I think feeling, things get really theoretical. In other words, like, I know my friends are out there, I know they love me, I know my family, my Billy's grandparents are out there, I know things will probably be okay. I know this, but when what you're looking at is dark gray, is shut down. And so same way with, like, an audience or something, like, um you have to kind of taste in real time what music does when it's connecting live, you know? Like, just an ounce of it you can live on for a long time. But when it's just theoretical, when it's a live stream, or when it's like yeah, I think that, that's just concepts. That's just the concept of, music. And when we want the experience, I want to see the face to face. I don't want to just hear about your name. You're like, that's what's been, I think, for me especially tough. So that's why we kind of let off with that track on the record. And we just wanted to bring that back around, like, you know, uh, you got to get out of the boat and into the lake at some point. Otherwise, you're just kind of, just watching it float by.
Oh, I was gonna say I like the remake of Patti Smith's. What is Ghost Dance or whatever?
Yeah.
In my head, I have all your good people kind of all gathering. Like you said, you want to party and pass around your kid. I see that, or I hear that and visualize that with that song. I can be way off for that, but that's kind of what that song made me feel or envision. And just the coming together and the importance of person to person.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought of it that way, but that was definitely the last room I was in with a bunch of people, was recording. It was singing with all those guys on that song, so yeah, that's that chant like quality. Yeah, maybe you can apply it to the pandemic. We shall live again, even though it's about the ghost dance. But yes, that's a feeling, that's a great feeling when you're in a room. I mean, it mattered so much who was in that room. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's cool about records. I was like, I don't, it's not ego. It's just like, you look around and you're like, I mean, where else does it happen? I guess it happens at weddings, funerals, you know what I mean? The things in life that people gather for, they're like, oh my God, cousin Johnny made it, it's like, yeah, fucking Keith is here, and Hal Gelb and Gabriel and Billy, and this has never happened before, and it might never happen again. Here we are. To me, that's what's fun about record making.
Yeah.
Oh, you can go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it brings like such a good envy of little tidbits of your journey and the people that you surround, and you have like, this sound and memory of that, greatness before the pandemic, or when you're all together, because maybe you, like you said, it won't happen again, and you have that and you get to share it with us, and you can feel and hear it, because and that's actually another great quality of you too, live, because you do surround yourself with such great people, and it is such a intentional work that you do. It's like you enjoy it, so it makes us enjoy it more. So then it
Yeah,
just brings it more connectivity, I guess.
I think so. I mean, I don't, yeah, don't tell all those players that I don't have the slightest clue what I'm doing, because I'm so lucky. I feel so lucky that I've gotten to play with the people I have, and there's definitely an ethic to that. I mean, it's not like you said at the very beginning. When you get the right people in the room, you don't have to tell them what to do. Um, and I've never seen much to be gained by fighting. A little bit of tension is nice, creative tension, so to speak. But for the most part, I want to get along really well with the people that I'm playing with, and um, yeah, I'm humbled and completely sometimes just blown away that that people would lend their voice or their instrument to this kind of a project like this, because I can't afford to pay people really well, and um that I guess hopefully they do it because also they know I would do it for them. There's kind of that currency that goes around. But being in the studio with Eric or JT and Jeremy, Simonette, I mean, it's like I do love that about this town quite a bit, and being able to occasionally do that, at the Cedar or at First Avenue, where it's like, um, yeah, it just makes those moments that are singular, and I guess that's kind of what I'm after too. That's why we don't, I don't use set lists. We don't. I never ever ever tell a guitar player what to play. I try to leave, like they say, in meditation, like in the Zen style meditation, you focus on the out breath, and then when you inhale, the world goes away for a second. Like you just fall, you let go, totally let go, and then you come back to this out breath. And I think of it, I'm after those singular moments. I'd rather leave spontaneity and holes in the set or the show and try something, even if it doesn't work, than and I've heard you. We all know those bands that kind of want to script everything and be really careful, and they probably, in some ways, they probably do better, as a um, sort of businessly or something. But I like no plan, like really put yourself up to that, and it makes you want to connect to the audience better. Like that's something that is a big deal. The Pines didn't always talk to the audience very much, and you know there's something mysterious about that for a while, but at the end of the day, like I want to connect, so that's what I'm after.
Well, we look forward to it. We can connect. I mean, I think that's what we're all missing, is that connection.
Yeah,
But music like yours is at least a methadone. And when we're all together, it'll be like, oh, I'm not going to finish that analogy, but
I like that. It's good. Yeah.
it's a, but I mean, it really, as I said, it was the soundtrack for my day. While I was doing, and I thought about you and all the work that you had done raising, as I said, information and funds for Northern Minnesota. And I thought, I feel a little like I'm connected to him because I'm doing
Yeah.
something I'm sure he'd like to be doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's fantastic. For folks who are listening, tell us where we can find you online. We'll put
Um,
this in the notes too, but
I'm gonna hide and be offline as much as possible in the next several weeks and months, but you can definitely find the record on vinyl and CD. My solo record at davidhuckfelt.com. We got a new batch of pretty cool t-shirts and hoodies made by terrific California indigenous artists named Cheyenne Randall, and yeah, I think the vinyl and the CD and the stuff, like we put all the art in there that we can, you know. So it's that's the best spot. We're on the social media, but that's only because we haven't figured out how to burn it down yet. So you can, you know, find on Facebook and Instagram. Um, but yeah, I'll be announcing some shows for the summer, outdoor shows in the region. I'm also accepting house concert submissions at this time,
Nice.
you know, backyard concerts, and we've added quite a few of those
Nice.
for summertime. So if there's anyone out there interested, you know, there's no offer we won't consider, as they say.
Very good.
Yeah,
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for the album. Thank you. And I was introduced to some folks I didn't know on the album. There's some folks I haven't heard from a while. There's some folks I used to love to see live on
yeah,
there. It's a great mix in that way. And it feels like a community while you're listening to it. So,
I really appreciate that so much. That makes me really happy to hear. Yeah,
good.
I'll cross there.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And thank you for being with us. This has been awesome.
It's great to talk to you. I'm super grateful. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing your show and lifting up Minnesota music. And yeah, one of these days we'll be up and we'll be at the same show at the same time, and we'll feel safe, and it'll be really fun.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.